You're mid-conversation, nodding along like everything's normal, until it happens. They say the right words, the supportive words, but there's this tiny pause before their smile shows up. Not a long pause, barely a beat, just enough for you to catch it. And in that split second, you see it. The expression that slips through before they put the mask back on. Maybe it's a micro smirk. Maybe it's the way their eyes don't match the compliment. Maybe it's how their tone changes when you mention one specific thing. Your progress, your confidence, your new plan, your boundary. You don't have proof. You don't have a confession. But you feel it in your stomach like a switch just flipped. Because the truth is, people can fake support. They can fake concern. They can even fake closeness, but they can't fake their first reaction. And once you know what to look for, you'll never unsee it. In this video, I'm going to show you what that snap moment usually means, why it feels so unsettling, and the exact shift that puts you back in control without starting drama or exposing your hand. Also, there's one cleanest tell that gives them away almost every time, and one mistake that exposes you the moment you realize what's happening. Let's start with why this feels so confusing in the first place. If you've ever walked away from an interaction with them and thought, why do I feel weird right now? You're not crazy, and you're not too sensitive. This is what mixed signals do. On the surface, everything looks fine. They say they're happy for you. They say they understand. They say they want what's best for you. But then there's the undercurrent. A comment that doesn't quite land right. A joke that somehow puts you back in your place. A sudden coldness the moment you sound confident. Or the way they get oddly quiet when you mention something good happening in your life. And that's what messes with your head. Because nothing is blatant enough to call out. So your brain does what it always does when something doesn't add up. It turns the suspicion inward. Maybe I'm reading into it. Maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe they didn't mean it like that. Here's the contrast most people miss. You think you're overthinking. But the truth is you're finally noticing patterns you used to ignore. And when I say they, I'm not talking about some mysterious villain. It could be a friend you've known for years. A coworker who acts friendly but competes quietly. A family member who wants you close as long as you stay manageable. Even a partner who supports you. Until you start changing in ways they can't control, basically. Anyone whose behavior shifts when you gain confidence, set boundaries, or stop playing the role they're used to. That's when the confusion starts, because they're not fighting you directly. They're trying to keep the old version of you alive. Let's get something clear before we go any further, because this is where people either get powerful or they spiral. This isn't about paranoia. This isn't about turning every awkward moment into a conspiracy. And it's definitely not about mind reading or assuming you know what someone is thinking. This is about patterns. Because one weird comment means nothing. One bad day means nothing. But consistent behavior, especially behavior that shows up in the same situations, means everything. And the truth you're about to see is simple. The truth is not what they say they want for you. The truth is what they benefit from you believing. If someone benefits from you staying unsure, they'll feed you just enough doubt to keep you there. If someone benefits from you staying available, they'll punish you when you get independent. If someone benefits from you staying small, they'll support you, as long as you don't outgrow the version of you they can manage. That's the difference between words and incentives. And once you understand that, you stop arguing with their explanations. You stop chasing clarity from someone who survives on confusion. You stop needing them to admit it. Because here's the stake. When you finally see the pattern, you can't unsee it. It changes what you share. It changes how you respond. It changes how much access they get to you. Not because you are becoming cold, because you're becoming accurate. And the moment you get accurate, the entire dynamic starts to shift. So here's exactly how we're going to break this down. Because once you have a framework, it gets a lot harder for anyone to confuse you. I'm going to show you 3 common masks people wear when they don't want you to realize what's really going on. Not cartoon villain masks, social masks. The roles they play so they can look innocent while still getting what they want. Then I'll show you the microsigns that expose each mask. The small giveaways most people miss because they are too busy trying to be fair or nice. And finally, I'll show you how to respond without drama. No confrontations, no long messages, no emotional speeches that give them more information to work with. Because the real payoff isn't catching them in the act. The real payoff is learning the calm move that flips the power dynamic, quietly, so they can't push you back into the old version of you. But before we get into the first mask, ask yourself this one question, seriously. If they truly supported you, would you feel this confused after talking to them? Hold on to that. And now, let's talk about the first mask, the one almost everyone falls for at least once. Mask number 1 is the most confusing one, because on paper, they look like a good person. This is the supporter mask. They clap for you, until it starts working. At first, they're all encouragement. They tell you to go for it. They act proud. They might even post your win, comment on it, hype you up in front of other people. But the moment you get real momentum, real confidence, something shifts. It's subtle, but it's consistent. You share good news and they hit you with a backhanded compliment. Wow. I didn't think you'd actually stick with it. Must be nice to have that much free time. Or the tone changes into sarcasm disguised as humor. Okay, celebrity. Don't forget us when you're famous. Or they do this thing where they change the subject too fast, like your win makes them itchy. You say, I finally got the opportunity. And they immediately go, oh, speaking of opportunities, did you hear what happened to so-and-so? And here's the sneakiest move. Praise that redirects credit. They'll say something like, I knew you could do it. I kept telling you. Or honestly, if I hadn't pushed you, you would quit. So the win is still yours. But the story becomes about them. Let me paint the scene. You tell them, genuinely excited, I've been consistent for 3 months. I'm seeing results. I feel different. They smile. They say, that's great. But their eyes drop for half a second. Their voice tightens just a bit. Then they follow it with, just don't burn out. You always go too hard. Listen, sometimes that's genuine concern. But when it's paired with a pattern of minimizing you, it's not concern. It's a leash. What they're trying to keep stable isn't your happiness. It's your role in their story. Because as long as you're the dreamer who never follows through, they get to feel like the grounded one. As long as you're the one who needs encouragement, they get to feel needed. As long as you are slightly behind, they don't have to question themselves. And the moment you start pulling ahead, their support turns into something else. Something that looks like humor, honesty, realism, but feels like a quiet correction. And if that one felt familiar, the next mask is even harder to spot, because it doesn't look like jealousy. It looks like innocence. Mask number 2 is dangerous because it's designed to make you look like the problem. This is the innocent mask, also known as plausible deniability. They don't come at you directly. They don't say, "I don't want you to succeed, they're too smart for that." Instead, they drop little pins, comments, questions, implications, and then when you react, they step back like they have no idea why you are acting like this. They provoke. Then they play pure. Here's what it looks like. They'll say something that's technically small, but it hits a nerve. Are you sure you can handle that? Don't you think you're moving kind of fast? I mean, I'm just being honest. And if you challenge it even calmly, they pull out the classic line, "I never said that," or its cousins, "You're twisting my words. That's not what I meant." Wow, you are really sensitive lately. Noticed how the focus shifts? It's not about what they said. It's about your reaction, your tone, your mood, your issues. Another sign is selective memory. They remember everything you did wrong 3 years ago, but somehow forget the part where they pushed, hinted, mocked, or undermined you 5 minutes ago. And because you are trying to be reasonable, you start doing their job for them. You start questioning yourself. Then there's triangulation, the sneakiest one. They'll say, "I'm not the only one who noticed. Everyone's been saying." A couple people think you've changed, but when you ask who, suddenly it's vague. "Oh, I don't want to name names." It doesn't matter who, I'm just telling you. What they're doing is borrowing fake authority, using an invisible everyone to pressure you without being accountable. And here's the move that really messes with your head. Leading questions that trap you into doubt. They'll ask, "Do you think you're being realistic?" Or, "Are you sure this isn't just a phase?" Or, "What if people take it the wrong way?" On the surface, it sounds like concern, but the pattern is every question leads to the same destination. You shrinking yourself. This is the contrast you need to remember. They don't attack directly. They outsource the damage to your confusion. They keep their hands clean, and they get you to do the emotional labor of dismantling your own confidence. And if you've ever felt like you walked into a conversation solid and walked out apologizing for something you can't even name, this mask might be the reason. Now let's talk about mask number 3, the one that's the hardest to accept because it hides behind closeness. Mask number 3 doesn't look like an enemy. It looks like someone close, someone who knows your history, someone who can say, "After everything we've been through." This is the close to you mask, where access becomes influence. Because for certain people, closeness isn't about connection. It's about position. They want to be the person who knows your next move before you make it. The person who hears your doubts first. The person who gets the inside version of you. Your plans, your relationships, your vulnerabilities. Because that information gives them leverage. And the moment you start protecting your energy, they feel threatened. Here are the signs. 1. They guilt you for boundaries. You don't even have to be harsh. You can be polite. You can say, "I'm keeping this private for now," or "I'm focusing. I'll talk later." And suddenly it becomes, "So you don't trust me?" Wow. I guess we're not close anymore. I would never do that to you. Notice what happened. Your boundary didn't get respected. It got turned into a moral accusation, too subtle punishment. They won't always explode. Sometimes they just withdraw. Short replies. cold tone, silence, forgetting to invite you, acting normal with everyone else but distant with you. It's not random. It's conditioning they are teaching you. If you don't give me access, you lose warmth. 3. They need to be the first to know. When something happens, good or bad, they expect a front row seat, and if they hear it from someone else, it becomes a big deal. Not because they care, because they lost position. 4. They make your independence feel like betrayal. You start going to the gym, starting a project, meeting new people, saying no, building a life, and instead of being proud, they act injured. They'll say, "You've changed." But what they really mean is, you're harder to influence. And here's the part that's tough to admit. Sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it. They just know the old dynamic worked for them, and your growth breaks it. So they pull you back with nostalgia. Remember when it was just us. You used to tell me everything. I miss the old you. But the old you was the version with fewer boundaries. And in a minute, I'm going to show you the clearest tell that gives them away almost every time, because it shows up the instant you stop being available in the way they are used to. Before that, we need to talk about the micro signs, the tiny, repeatable behaviors that prove this isn't in your head. All right, this is the proof section. Not proof like you're building a court case, proof like you're seeing a pattern and now you have language for it. Here are 7 microsigns that someone's behavior isn't as innocent as it looks. And the best part is, they have no idea you've started noticing. 1. Their story changes when you gently challenge it. They'll say something with confidence. Then the second you ask a simple follow-up, the details shift. Example, they say, "I was just worried about you," you ask. Worried about what specifically? Now it's, well, you know, just in general. It's not that deep. If it wasn't that deep, why did it need to be said in the first place? 2. They over-explain harmless details. This one is subtle. When someone's being straightforward, they're usually simple. But when someone's trying to steer how you perceive them, you'll get speeches. They'll explain why they didn't respond, why they said what they said, why you misunderstood, why their joke was just a joke. It's like they're not answering you. They're managing the narrative. 3. They test your boundaries with small requests. It never starts big. It starts tiny, a small last-minute request, a small pushback when you say no, and they watch what happens. Because small boundary violations are like tapping a fence. If it doesn't shock them, they push harder next time. Part interrupt. Pay attention to how they react to the word no. Not your tone, not your explanation, just the boundary itself. 4. They fish for information right after you level up. This one is so consistent, it's almost funny. The moment you get momentum, new job, new routine, new confidence, they suddenly get curious. What are you working on? Who are you talking to these days? So what's your plan exactly? How much are you making now? Are you seeing someone? It sounds casual, but it's timed, because information gives them something to compare, criticize, compete with, or control. 5. They minimize your instincts. You're sensitive. Anytime you bring up something that didn't sit right, they don't address it. They diagnose you. You're overthinking. You take things too personally. You always assume the worst. That's not communication, that's character assassination. Small enough to deny, strong enough to destabilize you. 6. They react more to your confidence than your words. This is one of the biggest tells. You can say something completely normal, but if you say it with certainty, they get weird. You say, I'm not doing that. You say, I decided I'm going a different direction. You say, I'm keeping that private. And suddenly they're not responding to the sentence. They're responding to the energy, because the real threat isn't your decision. It's that you made it without needing their permission. 7. They try to reset the old dynamic with nostalgia. You've changed. This is the reset button. When they feel you slipping out of the old role, they reach back for the version of you that was easier to influence. You've changed. You're not like you used to be. I miss the old you. Translation: I miss when you were predictable. And here's the mini recap you need to remember. If you've seen 3 or more of these consistently, it's not random, it's a pattern now. Remember that open loop I promised? The clearest tell? Here it is. When you stop giving them access to your time, your emotions, your information, they don't ask what you need. They ask what happened to you. They don't get curious about your life. They get threatened by your shift. And that's the moment you realize this was never just connection. It was control through closeness. So now the question becomes, what changes the second you see it? This is where everything flips, because the truth isn't just something you learn about them. It's something you learn about the role you've been playing. Before you see it, you're trying to be understood. You're trying to keep the peace. You're trying to be fair. So when something feels off, you do what most good people do. You over-explain. You justify. You offer extra context so nobody can misunderstand you. You try to clear it up with someone who keeps it unclear on purpose. And the more you do that, the more information you hand them. But after you see it, after the pattern clicks, you stop playing defense. You stop treating every weird moment like it's your job to fix it. Before, you look for approval. After, you look for consistency. Before, you rush to respond, to smooth it over. After, you pause, and you watch what they do in the space you used to fill. That pause is everything. Because the real power shift isn't you becoming louder or harsher. It's you becoming selective. Your attention becomes selective. Your energy becomes selective. Your access becomes earned. You don't need to announce boundaries like a speech. You don't need to accuse. You don't need to catch them. You simply start choosing what gets a response and what doesn't. And that's why this moment is so uncomfortable at first. Because you're not just seeing their behavior differently. You're seeing your own value differently. Now here's the part that matters. Once you know what's happening, you have to respond the right way, so you don't accidentally reveal what you know. And you don't fall into the traps that pull you back into the old dynamic. So let's get practical. Here are the calm responses that protect you, without drama. Here's how you respond once you see it, without blowing things up, without starting a war, and without giving them more material to work with. These are 4 calm responses, simple on purpose. Because the more complicated you get, the easier it is for them to twist it. 1. The pause plus neutral acknowledgement when to use it. When they make a slick comment, a subtle dig, or a joke that's meant to test you, your old self might rush to laugh, explain, or defend. Instead, you pause just 1 beat longer than normal, and then give a neutral line like, got it, interesting. Okay, why this works? It removes the reward. People who live off reactions can't do much with calm silence. And the pause forces them to sit with what they just said, what not to do, Don't fill the silence with nervous explanations. Don't rush to make them comfortable. 2. The boundary reset. I'm not discussing that. When to use it, when they fish for information, push into your personal life, or try to pull you into a debate about your choices. Use a clean line. I'm not discussing that. I'm keeping that private. I'm not available for that conversation. Say it once. Calm tone. No anger. No long story. If they push, repeat it. Same words. Same energy. Why this works. It trains people that access to you isn't automatic, and it keeps you from stepping into their favorite trap, making you prove your decision is valid. What not to do, don't overjustify. The moment you start explaining, they'll grab one sentence and argue with it. Boundaries aren't debates. 3. The redirect. What makes you ask? When to use it. When their question feels off, loaded or timed. Especially right after you level up. They ask, so what's your plan exactly? You respond, calmly, what makes you ask? They say, why are you being so private lately? You say, what makes you feel that way? This flips the pressure. It forces them to reveal their intention, without you accusing them of anything. A sincere person will clarify with respect. A controlling person will get irritated, defensive, or vague. And that reaction gives you information. What not to do. Don't answer the original question until you understand why it was asked for. The slow distance strategy, less access. More neutrality. When to use it. When it's a pattern, not a one-time thing, especially with someone you can't fully cut off. Coworker, family, shared social circle. This is the last response. And it's the one they can't adapt to easily. Because there's nothing to argue with, you slowly reduce access. You share less about plans and more about neutral topics. You respond less quickly. You stop explaining yourself. You stop volunteering emotional details. You keep interactions polite, short, and consistent. Think of it like turning down the volume. Not slamming the door. Why this works. You are not punishing them. You are simply moving them from inner circle to outer circle, based on what they've shown you what not to do. Don't announce it. Don't make it a dramatic, I'm distancing myself from you. That gives them a scene. The power is in the quiet consistency. And if you do these right, something interesting happens. People who genuinely care will adjust and respect you. People who needed control will escalate because they can feel you slipping out of their grip. Which brings us to the final piece, the mistakes that expose you, and how to end this with clarity instead of chaos. Before we close this out, we need a quick reality check, because this information is powerful, and the fastest way to misuse power is to go extreme. This is not a witch hunt. Not every awkward comment is sabotage. Not every mistake is manipulation. People are messy. People have bad days. Sometimes they say things wrong. That's why the rule is simple. Look for patterns, not one-offs. Consistency over time, same behavior, same situations, same outcome. You feeling smaller, more confused, more on trial. Now, here are the 3 biggest mistakes that expose you the moment you realize what's happening. Mistake 1. Confronting too early the second you wake up. It's tempting to call it out, to say, I see what you're doing, but if you confront too early, you teach them how to hide it better. You give them a script. You give them a new mask. Instead of confronting, observe. Let the pattern show itself clearly. Your calm is your advantage. Mistake 2. Trying to win. With receipts, some people think the solution is proof. Screenshots, timelines, detailed explanations. But here's the problem. If someone benefits from confusion, they don't lose when you bring proof. They just switch tactics. They argue semantics. They attack your tone. They change the subject. They turn it into a courtroom where you are the defendant. You don't need to win an argument to win your life back. Mistake key 3. Seeking closure from someone who benefits from confusion. This is the trap. You want them to admit it. You want them to finally say, "You're right, I've been doing this." But the kind of person we're talking about rarely gives closure, because closure frees you, and if they could free you, they would have respected you earlier. So here's the closing payoff, the truth that changes everything. You don't need their confession. Your clarity is enough. When you see the pattern, you adjust access. You protect your energy. You move with intention. And remember the 2 open loops from the beginning. The cleanest tell was their first reaction. That split-second moment before the mask comes back. And the mistake that exposes you is confronting and over-explaining too soon, because it hands them your strategy. So if this hit home and you've been noticing these patterns, comment the word truth. I want to know you're seeing it too. And if you want the next step, watch the next video on boundaries and social power. Because once you spot the mask, the real skill is staying calm while you change the dynamic. Because the moment you stop auditioning for approval is the moment you start choosing who earns access to you.